just want to take a moment here to point out that the code enforcement dude is fencing with plastic pipes with the crowd. Now you understand Zorro a little bit better. Or should I say, Zorro. Can I do it? Zorro. 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 Hey everyone, Gavin, Seim here, Liberty's Exile, and whatever is going on with those avocados looks pretty interesting. Let's go talk about it.
Hola, policía. Necesito ayuda.
Hey guys, Gavin here. So one of the things that we do a lot on this channel is kind of comparing the cultural differences and the freedom differences between freedom, let's say in Mexico and in the United States. I hesitate to use the word freedom in the USA because there really is none. I mean, there's almost nothing that you can do in the US without a permit. You don't even actually have to be resisting or breaking a rule to get shot in the streets. Like my friend Jeff Winehouse, who they tried to murder and they sent him to prison for having the audacity to survive. Our government is out of control, absolutely and completely lawless. This is something we've seen. There's some recent videos you may have seen from James Freeman up in Sioux Falls. You know, you see the activists and just people with their cameras all over the country, and the police are absolutely insane. And the reality is, like, I don't relish violence. I don't want any side of a position killing each other. But the police continue to back themselves into this corner in the US where it's like, what do you expect? Like, the people are going to respond. Another thing you may have noticed about the cops in the USA is it's huge, unbelievably enormous egos. Have you ever noticed every time you deal with a cop, they're passive aggressive, right? Cops are always passive aggressive, even if you're not having a problem with them. Their entire demeanor is like, you know, your nasty passive aggressive cousin, right? Who always wants to pick a fight. You're like, okay, so you go left then, officer? Yeah, that's why I just told you to go left. I said go left down there because it's down to the left, right? Everything you say to a cop, is it a law that I have to do that, officer? Well, I told you it wasn't a law. If I said that, if it wasn't a law, I mean, I told you I had to do that. Everything a cop does in the USA is this demeanor of massive ego, authority, and do what you're told or else. Today, I thought we'd illustrate, because there's two videos that have been being shared around social media lately that really illustrate the difference between Mexico and the United States in terms of how people perceive police, how they perceive government rules. It's not that there's not corruption. It's not that there's not silly laws. It's that the entire demeanor of how people look at police is different. They're not taught from youth to worship and idolize police down here. This video here, you guys may have seen floating around, and it's from an incident in Fresno, California, where this cop is roughing up and arresting this guy, this Mexicano man, for not having a permit for running his taco shop, his taco cart, right? And so he's arresting this guy because he didn't get the right permits. One of the things I love about Mexico is you can get real food without permits, because as soon as the government controls your food supply, they control what goes into it. So in the USA, if you want tacos, you can only get FDA approved. When the government controls everything, you have zero control. So there's this video and this guy is being arrested, and you go to the comments, and this is what's really telling, is how the society responds. If you look at the comments of people watching this taco vendor who's simply trying to make a living get arrested because he didn't give the government a cut. And that's really all a permit is an extortion. The government doesn't want to protect us. The government doesn't protect us. In fact, some of the most horrible foods and nastiest restaurants are perfectly approved by your government because they play the game. And yet, if you look at the comments in the USA, well, he needs to follow the rules. He doesn't pay taxes. Confiscate his truck and his kitchen, the way they do hunters and fishermen without a license. Cops have a license to arrest lawbreakers. This is not a lemonade stand, says Jesse in the comments. the majority in the US are absolutely brainwashed. You do what the cops say, or you deserve to be jailed, shot, punished, beat, abused, robbed, etc. There's an absolute propagandized brainwashing that tells us cops are God, and they act like it. Now, in contrast to that, in Morelia, Michoacan, and these enforcers, these brown-shirted guys, I don't think they understand the irony. They have these brown-shirted guys that aren't like armed police. They're more like code enforcement officers. And you'll see them sometimes around busy markets and in centros of the larger towns and things like that. And they like to harass people for vending in the wrong place or not having a permit, or they want to cut. You know, it's just extortion. Remember, a permit has nothing to do with safety. The idea that government gives you permission to live, and by permission they mean you have to give us money, that's not law and order. That's extortion with threat of violence. Except for in Mexico, people don't fear violence from police so much. And so the demeanor of people is a lot different because cops aren't allowed to shoot people in the middle of the road here. Now, in this incident here, we see these enforcers, and they're coming up and they're harassing this man for his avocado cart. And he's in the wrong spot, or he doesn't have a permit. And so he goes to leave, and they're kind of asking him questions and harassing him. They got the cops around there. And watch what he does here. He actually dumps the entire load of avocados. Then they start picking up the tubes and pipes, and the crowd turns on the code enforcers.
Hermano, todo lo que tú tienes, todo net, nadie te va a quitar nada. Ustedes pueden recoger sus cosas, se les va a entregar un resguardo.
Llévatela para allá abajo, lo vais llevando.
¿Qué nombre tienes?
Oye, pues aquí ya no es una centro.
Carnal, no pueden de veras.
Hombre, pues aquí no te va a llevar mi madre. Vámonos para allá.
No puedes, hermano, en serio. Bueno.
You can actually find other videos from Morelia of these code enforcement goons harassing people for street vending. They're kind of getting a fist fight, and people are getting angry. And that's where you see the rest of the crowd kind of engage, not to stop the people that are resisting the enforcement, but just to make sure that things don't get too out of hand, right? You see people stepping in. This is how it should be, stepping in to make sure things don't get violent. You see an actual armed police officer on the scene in this one, and just by then everything's already dealt with. It's a done deal, and it's not that big of a deal. Now, these are plastic pipes, so nobody's being seriously injured here. But what they do is they start throwing avocados and running the cops out of the market. Not just one or two people. The people in the market start unifying against the police. They're saying, you don't have a right to tell us we can't sell and we can't live. And this video actually goes on for a while. It looks like essentially chasing the police out of the public square and throwing avocados at them. They're chasing their vehicles down the road and beating their vehicles, the police vehicles that is, with the plastic pipes. They're straight out running the police out of the square. Now, what's interesting here is in the States, these would be called violent, terrible anarchists. They would call in shock troops or whatever they're calling them these days, and they would start arresting mass people. But here, while you might get arrested here and there in incidents like this, and you might see a few people getting arrested, the reality is the police ran away because the people said, you're done here. Here they're actually chasing the police car out of the square. They're running it off. This is significant. It's not that we want to have to get in fights with enforcement figures, but what people don't understand in the USA is when government is restrained, it's because people restrain them. The principle of the United States of America was running the police out of the square. It was throwing tomatoes, or in this case, avocados. It was doing what it took. And ultimately, in the United States, that led to revolution in the colonies. But the more you engage, not with deadly violence, but simply with resistance. The more you engage simply standing up and saying, quit harassing us, quit robbing us, go out and stop real criminals, right? And that's kind of the tenor. If you look at the comments of this, sure, there's the sycophants in there. And again, I'll link to this. You can read the comments and translate them into English if you need to. But informal trade is necessary to keep the millions of families in different countries. I don't understand the government wants everything from them and the people to get screwed up. Everyone has the right to sell and live.
If 60 bros with tubes and avocados came after 30 policemen, shouldn't we see that this must mean the whole town has a problem? This is the kind of thing, I think he's saying this is the kind of thing that happens when your government lacks morality and is full of corruption, lies, and cheating.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He's using some colloquialisms.
Yeah, colloquialisms don't translate too well. And here's the beauty. I mean, sure, there's people in there saying, oh, well, we need to bring order. There's people here that are watching too much US media and they think they want to be like us. And they're like, oh, well, we have to respect the police. But it's flipped. In the US, the lion's share of people are saying, obey, do what you're told, or go to prison. And here people are saying, good, let's stand up to these corrupt thugs and stop letting them rob us for the privilege of living. Look at what these guys were doing here and imagine if a group of people at a farmer's market in the USA did that because the brown-shirted regulators came around trying to extort them. And people say, well, this is disorder, this is anarchy. No, the government officials that think they can rob us and require permits for our very survival, they're the anarchists. They're the sovereigns, if you will. They are the criminals. And they may be polite about it sometimes, or in the case of the USA, not polite and pointing guns at you, but it doesn't matter. If you are a parasite and you live and you survive by robbing other people, especially the poor who are simply trying to make a living, you're a criminal and you deserve to be treated as a criminal. One of the things I like down here is they don't generally, there's this perception that, oh, the Mexicanos don't value life, but they do. They don't go to extreme violence. They generally stand up before bloodshed is necessary. And this is an example of that. Whatever's going on in that market, it's probably not this one incident alone. And they're getting sick of the corruption and extortion from their local government. Meanwhile, in the USA, we do what we're told, or we die or go to prison, like Jeff Winehouse, Schaefer Cox, Leonard Peltier, and the list goes on and on and on. Okay, so I just thought I'd show you, I thought this was a really good example, a cultural example of the differences between the United States and Mexico when it comes to how people perceive their freedoms and liberties, and they are much quicker to jump up. This here, this is why cops in Mexico do not execute people on the road. They don't beat them to death like Kelly Thomas, because people's mindset is different and they will stand up to these thugs. They're not simply gonna always stand by and tolerate everything. Let me know what you think. And if you've been to Mexico and you've seen these examples, share them in the comments. Let us know, like, subscribe, and we'll keep doing videos trying to expose the corruption everywhere, and also show some differences of what places in this world we can have a little more measure of freedom.